begin, Rogers, it's wonderful to meet you, and I want to begin our journey into your wonderful and intriguing work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was raging, and there was so many uncertainties, so many things changed. How did you survive the pandemic of 2020, and how did it radiate, and how has it influenced your world in 2025?
Well, I think the pandemic really, we here in Santa Barbara got through it with very little stress. It was amazing how easy it was for us to get through the pandemic, almost as though it weren't here. There was nothing that we were physically restricted to. We could go out, we would wear masks in stores and so on and so forth. I'm not a good subject to use because it passed by us with only the background fear of the pandemic itself.
Yeah.
That I think was universal throughout, in the sense that everybody felt certain degrees of fear, knowing what the results, hearing every day about the results of the pandemic in other places of the world and places that were close to you that you couldn't notice, but that were in Santa Barbara or Los Angeles, San Francisco, on Chicago, and then you just go on and on. But we didn't see it as vividly as people to the east of us saw it and experienced it. So it was a very different experience for us here in the west of the United States.
And I think it was that way all over the country. I know, Florida didn't have as many restrictions, and the Midwest, there was pockets where people followed the code, and others, yeah, it was a very strange time. So let me ask you this. If I was to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-old students right now, kids always get the truth out of us. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
All right. Well, I would say today I'm just a practicing psychologist, categorized more as a research psychologist because I'm more active in the theory that I've developed and working on that to get that theory out and about in a more public sense than a privately transmitted way between we psychologists. It's something that I've been working on for a couple of years now to get the book that I wrote about the theory and the theory itself out into the public so that it can be understood and eventually used. So that's what I'm doing, but that's not something I think that 12-year-olds would really understand.
They might they may be quite,
They're
sometimes
surprising.
yeah, they're very surprising. So let me ask you this: when you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to grow up and become?
I think 12-year-olds everywhere are looking for places of power, places where they can finally um, have control over the way they're viewed by um, the world itself. I think that you always hear and I think you participate in um, wanting to be a fireman or a policeman, a teacher, or something that the child feels is a position of power, that is a position that they feel that they have not participated in from the very beginning. So I'm sure, I can't remember, to be honest with you, but I'm sure that um, those kinds of desires were the kind that I participated in equally as everybody else.
So take me back to your childhood. What were these foundational seeds that were planted into you to get into psychology, to get into this realm of helping people and writing books? How did this happen?
Um, I don't think that you will ever meet a psychologist that doesn't have or has had psychological problems.
Right.
All right. So I think we pick many times the kind of world we want ourselves to participate in according to our needs and what we feel would be um, that particular job category that would allow us to deal more effectively with the needs we have. And at that time, um, I I was struggling like most children struggle, just to fit in, and suddenly found that there was something that I could learn that is supposed to allow you to know how to fit in and how to be someone that contributes to society and that is um, can have a certain position of prestige and whatever, and eventually power to be able to fight the kinds of contradictions we find in life, the kinds of things that are difficult for us to deal with at that age. And you are sort of convinced that becoming um, someone with a special technique or knowledge about how to get through all of this, and you become part of it.
So, as you sort of wrapping your head seriously around psychology, who is your favorite psychologist? Whose teachings and methodologies have you leaned on?
Well, at the time that I was involved in learning about psychology, I did this all in Europe. I left the United States when I was 18 and was at the University of Madrid, learning just some of the basics of university life in Spain and being able to take what they call just general studies. Um, and I, at that time, was trying to find a way of becoming a psychologist, the way you can become a psychologist in Europe. And Freud, of course, was the predominant at that time. We're talking about the 1960s. So this was way, way, way before you were born.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was, Freud still was dominant, especially in Europe, as um, and the Freudian psychoanalytic camp was one that everybody was imitating or trying to understand, and that was my initial introduction into psychology as well.
What about heroes? Who's been kind of an inspiration that's allowed you to find your footing and your voice and to evolve in your career?
Well, I think that the heroes were the heroes in psychology. Um, those psychologists that I think most of us followed, which were the malign kinds and the Freuds and the Rogers of uh, the new developing psychologists, those who were creating new ideas and having new theories about psychology. When you're young and growing, um, I think you latch on to those kinds of people. So Jung was very famous at the time and someone that uh, they, people continue to follow today. It's amazing that he has had enough, um, has gathered enough fame and fortune, so to speak, within the psychology world of psychology that people still follow, and we followed him back then as well. They were kind of our heroes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Dealing with psychology, you have to get into deep, heavy stuff. How have you insulated and protected yourself and to allow you to do the best work that you can do? Has that been something that's been persistent in your career?
I've never felt a need to um, fight against or be defensive with regard to what psychology meant to me at the time. What I did notice was something that concerned me and worried me about psychology, which was that it didn't really have a scientific basis. I couldn't find anywhere in the psychological world that had an anchor that was strong enough or loyal enough to science to pay serious attention to. And that's one of the things that I found bothersome when I tried to create my work in doing a doctoral thesis. I was concentrating on the defense mechanism called projection. And I couldn't find anywhere in that or any of the other defense mechanisms that were linked to a scientific anchor that was universally acceptable. And that was something that worried me considerably at the time.
So talk to me a little bit about your book. It's Not Your Fault. It's fascinating. Give me kind of an abstract.
It's a book about learning. It's about learning how we think, feel, and behave. Um, why we do think, feel, and behave the way we do. Where does this come from? Where is our point of departure, our psychological point of departure, and where is it leading us to, and why? And this is something that hasn't been available to anyone who has studied psychology, any psychologist, or any psychological subject since psychology began back in the early 30s of the last century. So in doing my doctoral thesis, I found that there was no anchor, as I mentioned before, and I spent most of my time trying to find one, and eventually did. So as a sort of general idea or feeling of what my book is all about, it's about that anchor. It's
Yeah.
about how we are structured, basically, put together psychologically, and the reason, therefore, why we do think, feel, and behave the way we do. So it's more about that than anything else.
I think the thing that's intriguing about the idea behind it is that when I talk to therapists and psychologists about the kind of the silver lining of how people heal and get to a better place, it's always about how people are so hard on themselves. They blame themselves, that self-dislike. And once they get over that, it kind of opens up the gate to a better result.
Yes, that's a typical malady that we find in our patients. That they lose their identities, they lose their goals, or find them too difficult to deal with. And basically, what this comes from is a lack of knowledge, a
Yeah.
lack of knowledge of how they and everyone else that they are in relationship with are psychologically put together. And it's this lack of knowledge, this lack of understanding that is predominant and um, the most difficult hump, so to speak, that they have to get over. Once they understand how they work, they understand how everyone else works, and therefore understand why the things that are happening to them and making them feel the way they do are doing that. And once you have that power of understanding, all of that changes dramatically.
So what has been your philosophy on work-life balance between taking care of your soul and your family and doing the best job that you can do? Do you have kind of a Lee Braddock scale you lean on? How does that work for you?
Well, it works for me knowing how we are pieced together psychologically in a very easy to manage way. When you understand how important others are to you psychologically, and not just other things, but mostly and more importantly, other people, we rely on them psychologically in a much more powerful way than I think we've ever realized before. And once you are cognizant, understanding of that relationship and the power it has, um, there is a very considerable amount of relief that you have. You realize how important other people are to you and how you have to care for other people, therefore, in a much different way, perhaps, than you did before. The way they feel basically is the way you could end up feeling. Um, it's a one-on-one um, relationship that will provide you or not with the kind of stability that you're looking for. So understanding that others are important to you and the reasons why they're important to you is basic in being able to get along, and something that I learned as I developed this psychological theory.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You ran into the 18-year-old version of you, ready to charge into the world, get into this field, and change lives. And you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the choices you've made, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Well, I think it's the same advice that I'd give to anyone that felt that they were unhappy or overly concerned with life itself. And that is to learn who they are and how they're put together psychologically, which is precisely what we have written in the book. It's not your fault. And what I'm trying to tell people, and what I would do with this 18-year-old, is to say, learn how you're put together, how you're psychologically pieced together to be the person you are. And once you know that, that will give you your direction as to where you should be going. What do you really like and what do you really need? Who are you as a person? Um, and once you understand that who you are as a person depends considerably on who everybody else is, you understand why other people have the influence and the power over you that they do. You depend on them and they depend on you to be the psychologically pieced together person that you are. So that's the advice I'd give. What that's today what I'm trying to do in getting my book read by people and understood by people, and they can ask questions and the concerns they have. They're able to contact me with ease and ask the questions that they may still have about who they are.
What has been one of the best reviews or responses you've gotten from your book so far?
Well, the book is very new. The book just came out.
Yeah.
So we haven't received any real feedback from the kind of general world that we're trying to address. Um, I've had very positive um, feedback from those very few who have read the book, and have from the beginning seen that those who have understood the theory itself that's expressed in the book, how it's influenced them and how it's been positively channeled by them and understood by them and then applied by them. So that initially is a very positive sign that the more people that read the book, the better it will be for them. And I think that if we can reach as many people as possible, I think those people who do read the book and do understand the theory, which is expressed in very simple ways in the book, can be positively influenced by it.
So let's say you walk into a room of everybody that knows you in a professional capacity, clients, colleagues, everyone that you've worked with, and you swim through that sea of people, go to a podium in front of that room, and you can tell them one fun story that would humanize you in a different way. First concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, outrunning a bear, something fun. What a magical place you traveled to on the planet that was unexpectedly magical. What would be kind of a fun story you could tell that room of people?
Well, I think the fun story is one that many people could end up participating in themselves, which is if and when they feel that they are in an ambience, in an environment that is difficult for them to deal with. Um, and if they are at an age where they are allowed such freedom, um, to do what I did, which is I just picked up and left and went to an entirely new environment, which in this case was Europe. Um, and not by choice. This was an error. I had gone on vacation there. And I think that sometimes when we leave our standard environment and just by chance on a vacation or wherever you are going to um, visit someone or a friend that you know that lives in another state or in another place on the planet. And you go and visit, and you're impressed, as I was impressed with Europe and Spain in particular. That began for me a whole new exciting life that I was totally unfamiliar with. A new way of thinking, a new way of being, a new way of behaving, new values, new exciting things to learn. It made all the difference in the world and changed my life entirely. So it is something that that new and different, exciting experience was moving to another country and living there permanently.
So let me ask you this: everything that you've accomplished and evolved into, most importantly, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What are you ultimately the proudest of everything you've done in your life?
All right. So you want me to tell you what caused that? I didn't.
Oh no, I'm sorry. What are you the proudest of? What of everything that
I'm
you've?
sorry, I didn't hear your last word.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Well, I think this book, I think
yeah.
this theory, I don't think there's any question that my life has been, certainly since the 70s, has been dedicated to uh, putting to work and proving the value of the theory itself. Um, it's a very exciting theory, and it's a very manageable one. It's one anybody can understand. And that is to me what has been driving my particular life since I developed the theory itself, and hoping that eventually as many people as possible could also participate in. That's when I think all discoveries are discoveries that we want to make public. We want the public to participate. We want everybody to enjoy and feel as excited as I felt when the theory suddenly evolved. So that that is the really is what driving me and driving hopefully in the future everybody else to have a better life by understanding the theory itself.
So at the end of the day, Rogers, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, colleagues, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, hopefully I am that person that will be able to give offer an opportunity to anyone who knows me, and I people who do know me know that I will talk about the theory anytime that they give me a chance. So I'm trying to be that person, and hopefully am that person that can spread the word and allow people who know me to understand this new way of understanding the world around all of us and how to get through this world in the most efficient and productive way possible.
So, Rogers, if anyone wants to pick up a copy of the book, they want to reach out, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
The very best place to go is Amazon. The book is on Amazon. There are several books with the same title. So if you just put my name, you can put Rogers, Rogers. Sounds as though I were plural. That's my first name. And just put that alongside the title, It's Not Your Fault, and that book will appear.
Okay. And I will put links in the show notes. Rogers, this has been wonderful. It's been an honor. Thank you, sir, for your time. Best of luck with the release and everything else. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All righty. Bye now.
Take care.
You bet.
All right, we're out. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I love it. This has been wonderful, and I really appreciate your time. So, yeah, good luck with it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Take care. Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.